and welcome to our Ciao, IES Abroad Milano holiday event. Among our guests today, we have Milan alumni from a range of classes starting in the 1980s clear through the class of 2019. Our new president and CEO, Dr. Greg Hess, is also in attendance with us today, as is our board member and Milan resident, Ezio Vergani. Special welcome to you all. We are glad you could join us today for our special presentation led by our esteemed Milan director, Dr. Roberto Andreoni. Dr. Andreoni has served as the director of the Milan program for more than 20 years. He earned his undergraduate degree at the Conservatorio G. Verdi in Milan and the Civica Scuola di Musica, where he later became director in Assago and in Milan. He holds a doctorate in music from the University of California, Berkeley. Dr. Andreoni is an internationally recognized composer whose works are regularly commissioned, performed, published, and recorded. Dr. Andreoni serves as the music coordinator for IES Abroad Milan and is a professor of composition at the Conservatorio di Musica G. Rossini in Pesaro. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Roberto Andreoni, and I apologize for my bad accent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you, everyone. I'm overwhelmed by this. I have to say, I'm honored by the very important persons who are attending here, Mr. President, the former chair of the board of IES, but also our faculty, our staff, our former staff and faculty, and so many students that just reading the list of the names of the participants short before this meeting, I have to say I was impressed by the number, but I was impressed by the names. My heart skipped so many beats that I almost had a heart attack. But I would love to spend this hour with each of you, former students, and know from you how life evolved for each of you guys. But in this case, my role is actually to speak once again, and not really speaking about music, however. So what we wanted to do is another fly over Milan. And we actually wanted to start from a little video that Quirin has prepared together with me. It was the typical drone video over Milan in the days of lockdown, which is a Milan you have never seen, guys. Completely desert, no traffic and no pollution either, but kind of sketchy. However, I think that you can recognize many places from this flight over the city. And since it had the usual generic hip-hop music accompanying, I took the liberty to change it, and I just did a quick orchestration of the Verdi Ave Maria, one of his latest pezzi sacri, to give a feeling that I think is more appropriate to the situation. A day like this, I've heard not very good news from the point of view of casualties due to the virus, both in the US and in Italy. So I think that this kind of melancholic and yet hopeful start could be nice. And after this, we have something about the old Milan and something about the new Milan, and a final bonus, especially for music lovers. Okay, so thank you, Gani, for helping. If you want to start with the first. it's quite charming, I think, to see Milan that empty somehow. Kind of awkward, but interesting. And from here, the invitation actually to speak today was mm, focused on the holidays of the city of Milan. And I wanted to show you a presentation that for some of you, here we are. Um, Someone asked me, Jennifer, when she first approached me, said, why don't you speak about Christmas, New Year Eve in Milan? And I said, maybe this is more for Vienna, but Milan has some special days exactly in these very days in which we are connected. The first week of December is very special for Milan because of the Sant'Ambrogio patron day of the city. And I think that is an interesting figure, an interesting situation to approach, to remember the double vocation of the city. Like in this initial slide, you can see the new and the ancient shoulder to shoulder, one on top, one next to each other. And this seems to be really one of the keys to understand our city. But below this current glowing surface, there was a very ancient surface. The first records we have of the map of Milan were actually Roman maps. And the structure of the city at the times of the Romans was the typical structure of any Roman city, which means articulated along the axis of the decumanus, the longest straight. In America, you would call it the main street, and the cardo, which is exactly perpendicular to that in a particular point, which is supposed to host the administrative center of the city, the forum of the city. So from the cardo, you see the porch of Porta Romana, where the emperor would come and go and enter and be immediately ready at his palace, surrounded then by other marvels that now don't exist anymore, like the stadium and the theater and other important Roman buildings. So on top of this map, actually, here we have the advent of a very interesting person, Aurelius Ambrosius, more commonly known as Sant'Ambrose, born in Germany, actually, as he was the son of the governor of the Gallia on behalf of Rome. 4 brothers, all the 4 of them were made saints. I don't know, it's like having a family where all the 4 win the Olympics or more than that. So he was a judge initially and was actually placed in Milan as governor of northern Italy by Emperor Theodosius, that after Constantine had established the center, actually the siege of the seat of the empire of the emperor in Milan. So it was an important figure, and actually during a negotiation between Christians and heretics of the time, he was able to be such a wonderful peacemaker that both factions acclaimed him to become a bishop. He initially refused and said, I'm not even a priest, how can I be a bishop? But evidently this extraordinary political capacity made him beloved by the population. And this honorable position of such a figure lasted all the way to our days. He was also a scholar. He's one of the few fathers of the church as a definition in the Catholic Church. He was a writer, a composer. Actually, it's probably the first time in history that we hear about someone composing music, really. And he brought into the Western world the hymns that were actually something he had heard in the Middle East, which was rhythmic singing. So the chanting that would actually obey a meter and a specific rhythm. Somehow you can say that he invented rap to that. And here is a little sample of that, but there can be more later. He was a great public speaker. He was known to be incorruptible, leader. Actually, he had to do very thorny negotiations because he was still considered an administrative figure. He had to have diplomatic role in the extermination of almost an entire stadium in Thessalonica, or also in some difficult decision making about Christian Jews fighting with non-Christian Jews in Syria and things like that. He even brought for the first time the word Catholic in the church. So the church is called Catholic because he proposed this name that initially was accepted even by the Greek and Eastern part. So a very important figure, as you see. Besides this history, there are also legends about him. He was such a good negotiator that he was let even to negotiate with the devil. And so there is, next to the Basilica of Sant'Ambrose, the pillar of the devil that survived from the Roman times, with the two holes that are the sign of the horns of the devil that eventually was kicked back into hell. And there are many legends of this kind that proliferated in the Middle Ages. As an administrator, he was also an architect, an urban planner, not just for beautiful basilicas that he built, like the one that ended up carrying his name, being named after him, the Basilica di Sant'Ambrogio, originally the Basilica Martyrum. But also, he planned the city as it is currently, by changing the axes that were designed by the Romans, and having the city articulated and punctuated north through south and west through east by 4 basiliche. San Simpliciano, which is now in Porta Garibaldi, San Dionigi, that was Porta Nuova, Sant'Ambrogio, that is still there, and San Nazaro, that is still there in Porta Romana. Actually, in the center of it, there was Santa Tecla that later became the Duomo. So that was the plan. And the plan was also having round walls around these basiliche that still nowadays is called the Circonvallazione delle Basiliche. And actually, this shape is very different from the Roman. The Romans were always with a kind of a square chessboard type of plan. And instead, he somehow brought the plan of Milan to have the shape of a Celtic cross, which actually is where he came from and where also Milan came from. The old Celtic villages were actually shaped like that, like circles. This is taken actually from the comics of Asterix. But if you see the Milan of the times of after Ambrose above, is actually much more similar to a Celtic village than it used to be similar to a Roman city. And also the scrofa semilanuta, the partially furred sow that gave name from the Celtic legend to Medelhan, later to become Milan, is portrayed, is brought into this slide to remember these Celtic origins that were united with the Roman tradition by Ambrose. Then came the barbaric invasions, distractions, Middle Ages, the sacks and massacres of Federico Barbarossa, and then the golden age of the city-state during the Duchy of Milan, under the leadership of the Visconti and Sforza families, with a refinement of the circular design, thanks to Leonardo, who planned for a much more articulated function of the canals around and through the city, actually to build the Duomo and bring the heavy marble through waterways, all the way to become the city that is now. with a spider web shape, with the center and then sliced down like a cake in the districts. That's the Milan you see nowadays, which is actually with the old circumvallazione of the Roman and medieval walls, and then the Spanish walls in the first expansion with the gates named after the ancient doors, the ancient gates, Porta Romana, Venezia, Garibaldi, and all the boulevards that were the entrance and exit of all the commerce of the city that still carry the same name of the gates, and should sound familiar to all of you who have lived in Milan for at least a portion of their life. Later on, the expansion went bigger during fascism and even bigger for the industrial development post-war, more similar to a pentagon shape than circular, all the way to the modern explosion of the city and the tangenziale, which is round again, all around the city, constantly trafficated. This to say that Ambrose was such an important figure that the city itself of Milan is known as Ambrosiana. Everything Ambrosian means is synonym of Milanese, you know. In the Ambrosian tradition, means Milanese tradition, that is named after him. So that's why this week of December 1-8 is very important, because on December 7, apparently he was made bishop, and since then has been celebrated as the patron day of Milan. So the Artigiano in Fiera is a fantastic exposition of goods, arts and crafts and foods that attracted, I would say, millions of visitors every year in this week. And because of that, of course, this year will not happen, but will be online. If you go to the website, which I will later copy some websites in the chat, you can see that you can have access still and buy goods from the Fiera, the Artigiano in Fiera. Why online? Why online? Of course, because otherwise it would be like this. As you see, this was last year. Definitely not a COVID-safe situation. Another famous fair around the time of Sant'Ambrogio was the Fiera degli Obei Obei. Obei Obei in the Milanese dialect means, oh nice, oh nice. So nice goods, things never seen before, candies and things that were not everyday's goods and foods in the habits of the Milanese. This has been going on since 1510. So exactly 500 years of Fiera degli Obei Obei. It always took place, as you see in the black and white picture, next to Sant'Ambrogio. But later, because of its size, always growing, was placed around the castle. So why not this year? Only 2 times it wasn't held, during the big plague, actually, in the 1600s, and during World War II. That is why, again, because this is what the Fiera degli Obei Obei used to be as of last year. And we cannot afford such crowded gatherings this time. So another important event of these days, so special for Milan, is the premiere of the grand opening of La Scala opera season, where I'm talking to you from. As you see, I'm on the royal box and talking to you from an empty Scala. This is the super full Scala of December 7, when there is the grand opening and all the glamour, VIPs, famous actor, actresses, soccer players, TV celebrities, and the chiefs of state, the president of the republic, the governor, the mayor participate. This year had to be Lucia di Lammermoor by Donizetti, and then orchestra players and choir singers of La Scala started getting sick for the COVID. And so they had to interrupt the rehearsals and cancel the premiere. However, there will be a show visible online as well as on TV if you are in Italy. And this is the website. I will copy that to you later again. And in real time, which means 8 p.m. for Italian time, you can attend this special show, Arriveder le stelle, which are the last words of the Dante's Commedia. You can see, I don't know exactly what will be famous singers, famous players, famous dancers doing probably solo pieces or small size performances, but of high value for that day. Another phenomenon is the Luminarie. Lights everywhere are lit on September 7 and last until Christmas and later. Especially the one in the Galleria made by Swarovski, that is always very special, with millions of crystal balls or pearls or whatever it is. Another famous Milanese tradition of this time is the panettone. Its name comes from the pan de Toni, because Toni was the apprentice of the cook of the Duke at the Castello Sforzesco. And for Christmas banquet, they were preparing a big dessert, and this dessert in the oven was forgotten for too long and burned. So nothing could be brought to the table of the Duke and his guests. And this felt really bad from the cuisine, the kitchen of the castle. And at that point, Toni, the young Toni, a teenager, said, look, with the leftovers of the dessert, I've put together some bread, some raisins and candies with some eggs, and I've cooked my own little dessert. Tastes good to me. If you want, you can bring this to the Duke. And they said, we have no alternative. We have no choice. Let's try this. And it was a success. And it was felt something very appropriate for Christmas because it's not grandiose, you know. And Milan somehow always loves to be low profile, you know. We leave the grandeur to the Saint-Honoré cake of the French. We go with a very simple, plain panettone. And then the Christmas tree of Piazza Duomo. And the tradition, also very Milanese, of the Epiphany, because Ambrose, and that's the last story about him, discovered or brought from the East some relics, some corpses that were the ones of the Magi. The Magi were in Sant'Eustorgio church for hundreds of years, actually 1100 years, and until they were stolen and taken as a battle conquest from the Germans and brought to the Köln Cathedral in Germany. Then they were returned recently by the German Pope, Ratzinger, who brought back some of these Magi relics. But in any case, on the Epiphany Day, there is a procession, and also the tradition that in Italian we say la Befana. Actually, this strange old woman flying around on a broom was also inspiring the Miracolo a Milano, a Miracle in Milan movie of Italian neorealistic cinema. And actually the name comes from Epifania or Bifania, Bifana, and comes from that as a syncretic union of pagan traditions of the old year portrayed as an old woman that was actually ominous, but put together with the Epiphany ended up bringing gifts to the good kids. So to finish this presentation, a quote from Ambrose. I keep hearing, these are bad times, heavy times, difficult times. Then I tell you, start living well and these times will change. So with this wish, we finish this first portion of our meeting. and then there will be time for comments or questions, I think. From here, we move to modern Milan, because I think that it makes sense for especially those of you who have seen many names that were here before 2010. And Milan has changed a lot in the last 10 years, 10, 15 years. And so I asked Quirin, who is actually very good with social media, with images and things like that, a collaborator of our staff, who also is running a wonderful Instagram page for IES Abroad Milan.
Don't
If you
forget
want
to
to follow us. Exactly. I wanted to update you on what has been new. For some of you, it's not so new, the most recent alumni, but for the long timers, this could be interesting to see how our city is trying to change. And I'm asking for the help to Gani for this. And I ask both Quirin and Luca Blumer, another most beloved staff member of ours, to please chime in along with me, because we might have forgotten many things, or there may be stories or things to underline.
Yeah, let's say from now on, actually every month, every 3 months, there's something new. So it's really developing, and it's changing in a good way, also in an ecological way. So it's amazing. Actually, it's every year it's something like extremely new. So Milan is really booming. It's great to see. Okay, let's begin this one, Roberto.
Exactly. So this is a good timeline. From 2011 to 2015, many novelties occurred in Milan. New design district, the new Portello area, the Bosco Verticale and city life that we will see later, Piazza Gaia Aulenti and the Porta Nuova project, all in function of making the city cutting edge, on time for the World's Fair that took place in 2015, the Expo Milano. 22 million visitors on that year. But that was not the highlight of Milan. Actually, that was kind of the beginning. The skyline of Milan started changing. It's actually now the only Italian city with a skyline. And from there, many new things kept happening all the way until this awkward freezing time. We can go to the next slide and be kind of, okay, city life. 3 great architects, Zaha Hadid, Isozaki, and Libeskind, made the 3 towers that you see on the bottom left. They already got a nickname: the straight, the twisted, and the curved. It's like the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know? That must be something that we like to have, the association of 3 nicknames all together. And then next, we see that there is a lot of green. This was not typical of Milan. Milan was known to be a gray city with too much compressed traffic, and now every new project has to provide an amount of green area that gives breath.
Yes, they're really working on avoiding the smog in the city. It's really important for Milan because obviously it's quite a thing right now. So they're really trying to keep it green and avoid all bad air coming in. So yes, this is a great project also.
Yeah, Quirin is from Holland.
Yeah, I'm from the
For us
Netherlands,
to
not from
hear
Italy. So that's
Dutch
why. That's
praising
why
the
I don't.
sustainable politics of Italy is almost incredible. It's almost a dream. So I like to hear that.
Let's
Next
say the
slide.
north of Europe is quite different as the south of Europe, so it's 2 different worlds. But I love Italy. Okay, next one.
Very big, the 3 skyscrapers. We can go next. And I have Porta Nuova. This is already a bestseller. It's actually been awarded multiple times for its kind of futuristic beautiful architecture, both of the plaza and the skyscrapers around, several of which have been awarded. Palazzo Lombardia has the largest and most beautiful indoor plaza of Europe, and also Piazza Gaia Aulenti and the Bosco Verticale, which will be the next slide, I think.
Yes.
Eccolo. Bosco Verticale, vertical forest. Actually, if you see on the upper left, if you take away the building and you place all the trees that are in it by design of the architect on a ground surface, it becomes like a large forest. So it really is like a healthy lung in the center of the city. You can go next. I don't think that the height is so impressive to Americans, but for Italians it is. Biblioteca degli Alberi, this is a nice idea. Having like a library of plants around this area of skyscrapers, so that it's a guided walking, strolling area with all different type of plants that grow in northern Italy and that create design, and at the same time can be educational for school groups and for people to bike or walk around.
Yeah, they recently built a little lake. So as I said before, every month there's something new. So this is not even updated yet. It's already actually more beautiful. Also in the evening, it's lighted amazing. There are lights everywhere, so it's special effects. So it's really good. Yes.
You go around more than me, and so you see these novelties. I've been locked at home because I'm 60. I have to be careful.
Yeah, I'm 25.
I wonder what the
Okay.
old alumni are thinking now. Look at Roberto, so old with white hair. Oh my God. But okay, let's go. Parco Portello, San Siro project. Here there used to be the factory of Alfa Romeo cars that then moved slightly out of town, then out of the region, then eventually out of the country, actually, to be produced. Outsourcing is called. But in that industrial area, like in other parts of the city, like Bicocca, for example, there has been a nice new project, including the new home of Milan soccer club, football club, and a nice strolling area for that spiral-shaped park that you see. About the stadium, I still put that in this slide, but Luca confirmed that this is wrong, that there has been a change.
Well, yeah, actually, hello, everybody. What you see behind me, I took a picture of the current stadium, will not be there, unfortunately, as many nostalgic people are already regretting. But both teams have decided, and there is this big project to build a new stadium and give a breath of fresh air. So they will keep a portion of the stadium that most of the students that were in Milan, I'm sure, visited, but turn the page, and as Milano always does, be innovative and green. So we'll see how that goes. But in 3 or 4 years, there will be a new stadium.
We can't wait. Next slide. This is what happened every night when the expo area of the World's Fair was closing. A light, water, and sound show around the Tree of Life. This was a big success, actually, and kind of a pride demonstration of the city that despite we are Italians, we can do something good and on time and well run and safe, and no accidents happened and so forth. So it brought a lot of attention and investors to the city. Next. The Progetto Navigli would be nice, sounds kind of a fantasy now. But the canals have been mostly covered, the Leonardo canals, by the fascists, because it was a time of, I don't know, there was sewage, rats, trash being emptied in the canals. So it became a very unsafe, stinky area, not really used for navigation anymore. And now there is a project of bringing them back out in the open air and make Milan a little wannabe Amsterdam. To maybe not having the barges as before, but having a strolling, jogging and area. Maybe some fog will be back, like at the times where the canals were everywhere. And we will see if this goes through. But the project is already there. Under this canal that you see in the picture, they are now building the new line of the subway, which we can see next. Exactly. When you were here, probably you saw Milan with 3 lines of metro. Then there was the Passante Ferroviario, and then the 4th line, officially, which is the 5th, actually. Now they're building the 6th line. After the purple, there is the new one that will connect the Linate airport all the way to the stadium, practically, passing through the center of the city. It will be a great help to diminish the traffic of the city. Next. This year, for COVID especially, it became urgent not only to diminish the car traffic, but to diminish also the public transportation traffic. Because as you saw from the numbers before, there is like 1.5 million people taking public transportation every day. And at times of pandemic, this cannot be possible, of course. And so the city invested in alternate, sustainable, clean, and individual type of transportations. Car sharing, scooter sharing, monopattini scooter sharing, electric cars, electric bikes. And this actually was very much used all the way through the beginning of the fall. Now that is winter, yesterday it snowed, I can see that the city is back to the car traffic. But this is definitely a way to go for the future of sustainability of our city. Next. Oh, also some important art was added to the landscape of the city. What you see in the background is the Stock Exchange of Italy. So you can imagine in 2010, in honor of the big financial crisis of 2008, having this sculpture being unveiled by Maurizio Cattelan. At the beginning, there were polemics, of course, they wanted it out, but the city voted to keep it on. It's called, ironically, love with the dots, L-O-V-E, which actually is everything but love, because it's libertà, odio, vendetta, eternità. So freedom, hatred, revenge, eternity. And is actually an anti-fascist statue, because as you see, the other fingers are cut, they're not bent. So the fascist salute is being amputated in front of a famous fascist building, which later became the Stock Exchange of the city. So put it as you want. This artist Cattelan is a famous, provocative extremist, like Banksy in England or things like that. So the city likes and can live along with the provocations as well. Another thing, which is actually a gift from America, next slide, is Leonardo's horse. Actually, this was made by Leonardo in lead after long planning and long observation of the muscles and the structure and the proportions of real horses. It's a majestic horse, which then was melted to make cannons for a war that the Duke lost in 1 year with the French. And what remained were just sketches and drawings of this wonderful statue that was later rebuilt by an American artist, I think it was American, with the sponsor from Michigan, the owner of supermarkets, Meyer is his name. I don't know what supermarket, kind of a Walmart thing in Michigan. And he wanted to rebuild this fabulous very famous but non-existing sculpture and donated it to the city of Milan, which placed it in the horse race stadium at the entrance.
Yeah.
Meyer.
I think it's Dutch actually, because his name is also Dutch. It's Hendrik Meyer. Yeah, I Googled him and I was like, hey, it's Dutch. That's my uncle.
I don't know whether we should pronounce it one way or the other, but it's a very nice, imposing novelty. There are other things. The PAC Museum reopened, the Museo della Permanente reopened, the Museum Mudec of Cultures and Intercultural Museum reopened. So there is a lot that is still going on, except for this freezing time, which attracted also many more of you students to this city. Next. Now, we have spoken about how appealing it would be to have all of you back to Milan, and I hope this happens sooner or later. And let's see if you still remember something, the very, very basics about Milan. Go with a little trivia that you can answer in the chat, and then Jennifer can tell us who arrived first.
So get your chat ready.
Sienna!
Okay.
Sienna, you ate that at my home.
Actually, Sally is also good because it's alla Milanese.
Click on the slide for the...
Okay. Next.
The answer is the next click of the presentation. Exactly, risotto alla milanese. Again, the legend says that this came out by accident because saffron was used to color the stained windows of the Duomo. And a worker who was painting in red and yellow the glasses had the saffron falling in the rice that was being cooked next to him by the other workers who were building the Duomo, and then it was considered to be a disaster, but it was actually delicious and became a tradition. Next. Too easy. Troppo facile.
Yeah.
Hey, okay. I even missed who was the first. Jennifer, who was?
For that one. Verde. Sienna again. Wow. Incredible.
Fantastic. Giuseppe Verdi. Yes, correct. One more. Milan is the city of fashion and?
It's easy. Yeah.
Okay, who arrived first? And the winner is?
Anna.
Anna Russo, design.
Tell your name.
Perfetto, perfetto, grande. Pirelli is the world's second largest producer of?
Yes, Charlie.
The answer is correct, but who was the winner?
Charlie Smith.
Hey, Charlie Smith, bravo. Okay. Milan Central Station is older or younger than the New York Central Station? It is actually older. Because the project started in 1898 and then it was interrupted because of the First World War and completed after, but actually it's a very ancient project that was completed later. Everything is older in Italy, says Luca. That's right. And Salone del Mobile for the spring semester students is the biggest.
No.
Not technology. Furniture.
Yeah, that's
yes.
good. Furniture. Yeah, I did interior design, but it's the same.
Yes, interior design. Furniture and interior design is another big tradition of Milan and Lombardy, which was actually the finest of Europe for many centuries and still has a name for it due to the modern design. Great. So those are packed weeks of visitors, designers and buyers from all over the world. Last, what glamour event is being held in September instead for the fall students?
Yeah, it's like it's not
Yeah,
like the fashion week
you all know
itself.
it.
It's like an event by.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's when it's quite like.
Okay, let's say within Fashion Week. Let's make it more difficult. Within Fashion Week,
It's
the
organized by one of the
night
biggest
in which
fashion
everyone
magazines.
is out has a special name. And
It's
it's
not
one
Anna
special day of the Fashion Week, and it's called, this may be too
I'll give you
difficult.
a hint. Anna Wintour. I don't know
There
if there's
was?
a fashion.
Brava.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Jody arrived to it. Yes. Vogue's
Yeah, it's
Fashion Night Out.
nice.
Yes. All the most awkward looks are around. It's really fantastic circus. And so this, I hope this made it a little bit, brought our chat on the light side. Now I would like to have some time for question and answers, if there are any. And after this, we have skipped the time of the Duchy of Milan, the time of the Visconti and Sforza, since I happened to participate to an important project during the Expo year, actually on purpose for the visit of the Obama family to Milan. There was a large projection on Palazzo Reale made by two painters from Milan and four composers. And I had to run and coordinate the project for the Studio Agon. So it's a 14, 15-minute music and images, collection of images of the Renaissance Milan that we can do as a coda of this meeting for those who still have time in their lunch break and want to stay 15 extra minutes and look also at this finale. In the meantime, please go ahead, amici.
So it looks like we've got a question from Charlie. Is La Scala having any productions this season, or is it completely closed?
La Scala should have all the productions. As of 2 weeks ago, they were still hoping to go on stage for the premiere. But after the premiere, there will be the next production and the next and the next. The season is complete and should be done as of schedule. Of course, these are times in which from 1 week to the next, everything is open, everything gets closed, something is closed, something gets open, sports, rather than, you see the installation of La Scala.
This is the Scala also right now.
Preparing for Sant'Ambrogio.
Really cool. Yeah.
And so it should be on all the rest, crossing our fingers that the vaccines arrive early enough to allow at least a distanced audience to sit in the theater.
So we've got another question from Victoria and Ahmed asks, how is the influx of people in the metro and the trams during the pandemic?
By influx, you mean
are there lots of people? Is it
actually the government has reduced the amount of people inside of the metro. It's like 50% in the bus, 50% in the tram. They're not really holding on to these rules because I'm outside every day. But the metro, the subway is actually, it's practically, it's not empty, but there are way less people than before. So they have like rules that there's a tot of people, 50% of the people usual. Yeah. And
So
they all have
masks. The packed rush hour that we had before, like between 8 and 9 a.m.
No, that's
the time you were coming to class, or between 6 and 7 or 7 and 8 p.m. again. Now is more affordable, more safe, I would say. But that also corresponds to an economic loss that is a bit dramatic for the building of the new line.
So we've got yet another question from Karen asking, how do locals feel about all of the new architectural designs in construction? much of the exciting designs you showed seem very modern next to beautiful old architecture that she remembers during her time in Milan.
In my feeling, I have the impression that Italians always react bad to anything new. It's like, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
There's polemic, there was mafia, there was a waste of money and things like that. But then you have to, like with music, you have to give time to projects.
Yeah, let's say, if I can say something, like it's right, but an Italian is really proud to be Italian. Like it's my language because it came from that many years ago. Like the whole world is based on, like it's Italy made the world. Sometimes it's like that. So it's right to think like, but the older things are better. And but I have to say, like young people really appreciate the new buildings. And if I see like Italian movies, they always show Milan with the big buildings, and they show Milan like New York. For Italians, Milan is New York. So I think they're quite positive about this, yeah.
And actually, I've heard a non-Milanese teenager who was around with me once and saw Porta Nuova district, and he said, "Is this like America?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Yes, like America." Oh, but only in Milan you can have this. So people are actually very proud. And I think they are using these spaces for life, and they're owning these new areas and hanging out and respecting these areas. It's actually very nice and promising.
Wonderful. Well, I just want to take a moment and thank Roberto and Corinne and Luca so very much for putting together this extraordinary presentation for us today. It's just wonderful to have a look at beautiful Milan at a time when we can't travel there. Just absolutely wonderful. What I also want to share with you is that they're very lonely because there are no IES students in Milan right now, and probably won't be until maybe next year in the fall.
We hope in the summer.
Maybe
the
the
companies that want the interns, so summer, come over.
Perhaps. So I do want to encourage everyone, if you are doing some year-end giving, please remember IES Abroad in those plans, because we want to have plenty of scholarship money available for students who do want to study in Milan next year, and we very much appreciate that. So now I know Roberto has a special ending surprise for you, a big finish with music and video. So Roberto,
Let
do you
me
want to
thank all of you who spent an hour with me. Just seeing your faces is fantastic for me, and I think for Luca as well, and all of your smiles. And it seems like no one else aged except me here. But in any case, I'm very glad to see you all in such a good shape, and thank you for remembering us and supporting us with your affection for us, for IES, and for the city. So the finale will be this 15 minutes of music and puzzle of Renaissance images that explain the life of the court, health system, warfare, and the new developments of the Milan architecture in 14 minutes or so. Grazie. Thank you, Mr. President, and everyone.
Ciao, grazie.
And Gani can start. fades away along with the golden age, the golden century of Milan. But we hope that maybe this one will bring the city back to top success. Thank you for those who stayed extra. Thanks to all of you. I was reading your chats and thanking generically because it's too many, overwhelming. Grazie, grazie a tutti, Lisa, Bo, tutti quanti.
Thank you, Roberto. It was beautiful. Thank you
Grazie.
all. Happy holidays.
Yeah, buona serata a tutti. It's so beautiful to see your faces. Bye
Ciao,
bye.
Bo.
Ciao, buona serata. Ci mancate un sacco. Ciao.
Ciao.
Oh.
Ciao.